Okay, so it's time to start. How many of you Googled Lagrange multipliers? Only one, two, that's it. So it's not a joke. I was not cutting a joke. I really meant it that you should Google Lagrange multiplier. Okay. So those of you who, like you said, you Googled it. How many hits did you get?
633,000 hits.
I'm surprised you didn't get a million hits because this is so common. So, okay, now the question is, if we want to maximize or minimize a function like f of fxyz equal to x cube plus e to the y, like exponential of y plus tangent of z minus 30 xyz, we want to find the point where this function has a maximum or minimum value, but we don't want to look for any point. We want to look for only those points which lie on the sphere. So what do? See, if there is no constraint, if this equation is not there, then I think one of you gave me the answer that we should simultaneously solve these three equations. But if we have a constraint, then we cannot just solve those three equations. So what we need to do is we need to modify our function. We need to modify the starting function. So we will introduce a new function g, which is a function of, and the most common notation is lambda, even though we have been using lambda for stretch. So do you want me to change the notation? So let's say it's mu. So we introduce a multiplier called Lagrange multiplier and modify the given function with mu times the constraint. The constraint must be expressed as something equal to 0. You cannot say x square plus y square plus z square equal to 1 and then write only x square plus y square plus z square here. The constraint must be written as something equal to 0. The constraint must be something equal to 0. If it is not equal to 0, transfer the terms on the right hand side to the left hand side and you get equal to 0. Then the left hand side goes here. This plus or minus sign is, I put minus, you can put plus. That's arbitrary.
Should the minus one be there inside, say, mu into, because that goes to 0, right?
I'm sorry?
Should the minus one be there in the second term?
Yeah, this one?
Yeah, because that would go to 0, right, if we apply the constraint.
The constraint must be expressed something equal to 0. So this is the left hand side of the constraint. Yes, you are right. This will go to, that's the whole idea. Okay, now, so this was proposed by Lagrange. Again, great mathematician. Now we forget about the constraint. He said, okay, after you modify the function, like after you introduce g, you forget about the constraint. Now think of g as a function of 4 variables, x, y, z, and mu. So instead of minimizing or maximizing a function of 3 variables, now we are minimizing or maximizing a function of 4 variables. So the conditions are same as you told me earlier, like delta f over delta x equal to 0, delta f over delta y equal to 0. Now we will write it as delta g over delta x equal to 0, delta g over delta y equal to 0, delta g over delta z equal to 0. And as one of you very correctly said, we will also have this condition delta g over delta mu equal to 0. And if you look at the last condition, you get back the constraint. The last condition gives you the constraint back. However, the first three conditions now, they are different because they are delta f over delta x minus mu times 2x equal to 0, delta f over delta y minus mu times 2y equal to 0, and delta f over delta z minus mu times 2z equal to 0. So we have four equations for four unknowns x, y, z, and mu. I think you have a question. Is it okay? So now we have four equations for four unknowns. And if you solve them, the constraint equation will be automatically satisfied. So you will be finding a point on this sphere that will maximize or minimize the given function f. And in the process, you will also find mu, the Lagrange multiplier. Okay, now let's go back to our problem then. Our problem was that we have this, we want to find this stretch. We are at a point in the body. This point P in the undeformed state. We have deformed the body. Like you have applied loads to it, and the shape of the body has changed. We want to find the direction n, which is a unit vector, where so that this quantity stretch ds over d capital S or uppercase S, so that this quantity is maximum or minimum. So the first thing is express your constraint as something equal to 0. So we cannot say NA equal to 1, we should say NA minus 1 equal to 0. So express your constraint as something equal to 0. Now introduce a new function. So introduce a new function, and that new function is g. Now it's a function of n1, n2, n3, and mu. It's a function of, now g is a function of four variables. n1, n2, n3 are directions, or direction cosines of n, are components of the unit vector n, and mu is a Lagrange multiplier. So the first thing is, of course, delta g over delta mu should be 0, even though in the previous case I wrote that as the last equation. So that will imply that NA minus 1 is 0, which means n is a unit vector. And the other three equations, delta g over delta n1, delta g over delta n2, and delta g over delta n3 should be 0. So to make our life simple, we will evaluate delta g over delta nl. So L can be 1, 2, and 3. So we are trying to do all three equations. We are trying to write all three equations in one. L can be 1, L can be 2, L can be 3. So let's differentiate it. C is not a function of n. So C stays there. What is the derivative of NA with respect to NL? So what I'm asking is, no, NA comma L will just, it's another way of writing delta NA over delta NL.
Kronecker delta.
Kronecker delta. You know, we did that last time. We said delta x1 over delta x2 is 0, but delta x1 over delta x1 is 1. So n1, n2, n3 are independent components now. These are independent variables. So if you differentiate n1 with respect to n1, you get 1. Otherwise, you get 0. So this is delta AL. So use that. So delta NA over delta NL will be delta AL and B. Are we done? No, because n appears again. So we have to use the chain rule of calculus. So we have the next term is then CAB NA delta BL minus mu. So we have NA minus 1. So what is the derivative of NA with respect to NL? It's written here, actually, delta AL. So we have delta AL NA plus NA delta AL minus 0. And this thing should be 0. For L equal to 1, 2, and 3, so these are three equations now. For L equal to 1, 2, and 3, these are three equations. So we have 4 equations. So we have 4 equations to solve for mu, n1, n2, and n3. Pierce?
I'm just wondering why you wrote minus 0 there. Is that just because the
Derivative of 1 with respect to NL is 0. Derivative of 1, and 1 is a constant, right? If you differentiate 1 with respect to anything, you will get 0. Okay, now let's simplify this. So we are still working with this equation and we want to simplify it. So we have C, now this A and A is summed. So what does that mean? So this A on C, the subscript A on C is replaced by L. So we get C, L, B, and B plus, again now B and B is summed. So we get C, A, L, and A minus mu. These two terms are same, so I can write twice delta AL and L, and that should be 0. It's delta AL, and A, yeah. Delta AL and A, so both these terms are same, so I can add them up. Okay, now let's look at the first term. C is symmetric. C, the matrix C, the way we defined the matrix C is symmetric. If you don't remember it, the definition of C was like CLM is FIA or FIL, FIM. That was the definition of C. So if you interchange L and M, you get the same thing. Like switch L and M. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to interchange this. Instead of writing AL, I'm going to write LA. It's the same thing, right? But what happens with the first two terms then? These two terms. Mr. Kunz at Oak Ridge. So what will be the first two terms? Kunz,
Yes, we could write them as 2 times.
Right, so they are the
C.
same terms. Yeah, so they are the same terms. So we could just add them up. So if we add them up, so we get twice CL A NA minus twice mu delta LA NA equal to 0. Delta AL is the same thing as delta LA. Delta AL is the same thing as delta LA. It's symmetric. It's a unit matrix. So 2 we can divide, and we get actually CLA NA equal to mu times NL. I will need this also, but first I transferred this term to the other side to get an interpretation for mu and n, and then I will come back to this equation in a minute. So what does this equation in the box mean? We studied this last time, like on Wednesday, and Pierce is looking as it, this is very strange. We did it on Wednesday. Yes?
Mu is an eigenvector of C, or eigenvalue of C.
Yeah. N is an eigenvector of C, and mu is the eigenvalue of C. This was the definition of eigenvectors. So what it tells you is, remember, we were looking for the direction in the reference configuration along which stretch is maximum or minimum. So what this says is that the stretch is maximum or minimum along an eigenvector of C. The stretch is maximum or minimum along an eigenvector of C. So instead of plotting the Mohr circle, which we did not teach you for a 3-dimensional problem, we taught you Mohr circle for a 2-dimensional problem. Okay. We did not teach you Mohr circle for a 3-dimensional problem. Unless you took advanced solid mechanics course, we usually teach Mohr circle for a 2-dimensional problem. Whether it's 2-dimensional problem or 3-dimensional problem makes no difference. We did not say our result is good for 1 or 2 or 3-dimensional problem. So to find the principal directions, which means directions along which stretches are maximum or minimum, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? To find the directions along which stretches are maximum or minimum, we need to find what? I just said a minute ago. So what do we need to do to find directions along which stretches are maximum or minimum? Find eigenvectors of C. They will give you directions in the reference configuration, not in the present configuration, not in the deformed state. They will give you directions in the undeformed state. Okay, now, not only we want directions, we also want the values of stretches. So we also want the values of stretches. So the stretches, the square of the stretch is ds square over big ds square. Okay. If n is an eigenvector of C, what will this quantity be equal to? If n is an eigenvector of C, the quantity in the box will be equal to just Ashley at Wake Forest or Kimberly. I guess I should not, maybe I should ask Mr. Wu, W.U. Wu at Wake Forest. Are you there?
He's not here today.
Yeah, he's not here today.
Oh, okay. So one of you can answer then for him. So what is it? What is quantity in the box equal to?
The
Eigenvector.
value times the eigenvector.
Good. So eigenvector times, so that will be NA, where mu is the eigenvector. mu is the eigenvalue of C. So that's the quantity in the box. We also have an A there. See, this is CAB NB is equal to mu times NA. And then we have another NA. So this is equal to mu. So that means eigenvalues of C are equal to what? Eigenvalues of C are equal to? Somebody answered, but who said that? Oh, you said it. Yeah, the one in the green shirt, right? How many of you agree with him? 1, 2, 3. Who said square? Yeah, this is squares of principal stretches, not, says ds square over ds square, not ds over ds. Little ds over big ds is principal stretch or stretch, but this is square. So it's squares of stretches. So to summarize then, eigenvalues of C are equal to squares of principal stretches, and this principle is spelled as AL, not LE. It's high school principle, not the rule of thumb. Many of you spell it as LE, even though it's not an English class. But I have seen half of the homeworks in which it is spelled as LE. It is AL, high school principle. You are looking as if I'm saying something wrong. It's correct. Yeah. And I have 30 years of experience seeing LE in homeworks. So and every year I say the same thing, of course, but doesn't have much effect. Okay, so it's AL, squares of principal stretches. And eigenvectors of C are the directions in the reference configuration. And I have said 5 times. And again, I'm afraid some of you are going to take that as in the current configuration or deformed configuration. This is in the reference configuration. C.
Dr. Batra,
Yes?
I have a question down in Wake Forest. Are you
Sure.
guaranteed to always have 3 of those, mathematically speaking?
Yes. C symmetric. The theorem in linear algebra says you will have 3 real eigenvalues. It does not say you will have 3 real distinct. Distinct means different. It does not say that. All it says is you will have 3 real eigenvalues. And since C is positive definite, you will have not only 3 real, you will have 3 real positive, including 0. Actually, it's positive definite because we assume Jacobian is positive, so there is no 0 eigenvalue of C. Incidentally, if there were a 0 eigenvalue of C, what will it mean? Francis? Please press that button also.
That all eigenvectors,
No, let me repeat my question. If there were a 0 eigenvalue of C, what will it physically mean? Oh, no, let her answer it. Because she was trying to say something, so I thought maybe I should. Go ahead. The answer is on the screen. If there were a 0 eigenvalue of C, Fred, what will that mean?
That one of your principal stretches is 0?
So what does that physically mean? What will happen to little ds? 0. So that means you have shrunk a line element to 0 length. We cannot do that in continuum mechanics. See, little ds over big DS is the square root of the eigenvalue. And if the eigenvalue is 0, then square root is also 0, which means little ds is 0. It's not allowed. By the same token, it cannot be infinity. Okay, the square root of the eigenvalue of C gives you how much stretch you have introduced in the body. What is the maximum stretch or the minimum stretch you have introduced? And if you subtract 1 from it, you will get, roughly speaking, strain. Like you change in length per unit length. Okay? Now, how do we find mu? So, of course, these days you can go to Mathematica and MATLAB or some other software and say, give me eigenvalues of C and eigenvectors of C, and there comes the result. However, if you did not have access to it, which means you are taking an exam or a preliminary exam, those of you who are doing PhD, and somebody asks you a question, how will you find the eigenvalues or eigenvectors? You cannot say, I will use Mathematica. That answer is not acceptable in a preliminary exam. Okay, so we go back to this equation. So we look at CLA minus delta LA, NA equal to 0. So this equation we got is CLA minus delta LA, minus mu times delta LA, operating upon NA equal to 0. These are three simultaneous equations. L can be 1, 2, or 3. These are three simultaneous, homogeneous equations, linear in N1, N2, and N3. I think Josh is thinking, so what am I going to say next? Guess. What am I going to say next now? Never know. Okay. So anyone will guess what? Actually, I have said that before. Like I said that the same thing on Wednesday. Yes.
The determinant of.
Right. Yeah, so in order for you are right. Yes. In order for these three equations to have a non-trivial solution for N1, N2, and N3, the determinant of this matrix must be 0. So determinant of CLA minus mu delta LA must be 0. And if you expand this, you will get mu cube minus, this is read as 1, even though it looks like an I. It looks like an I, but it's read as 1. And I'm going to put a subscript C on it because it belongs to C, the matrix C. So it's mu square plus 2 times mu minus 3 equal to 0. So if you take the determinant, this is what you will get. I will explain what 1 and 2 and 3 are. So it's a cubic in mu. 1 equals CAA. So what does that mean? I think you asked me that question on Monday. That eigenvalue, the principal stretches are eigenvalues of C correspond to the diagonal elements of C. No. CAA is sum of C, like it's C11 plus C22 plus C33 is sum of the three diagonal terms. It's a trace. And incidentally, if you do find the three eigenvalues, they come out to be sum of these three. If you solve a cubic equation, the sum of the roots of the cubic equation must equal the coefficient of the x squared term with the minus sign. Because that's again a theorem in algebra. 3 is simple, and so that's the determinant of C. Okay, 2 is 1/2, and I always forget about the sign, is CAA, CBB, and I think I. Yeah, okay. So CAA, CBB minus CAB, CA. So what is the first term? CAA, CBB. This trace of C squared. So this is the same thing as 1C squared. This thing squared is the same thing as this. So this term is same as square. So I could have written like 1C squared. Is it okay? Speak up, it's okay to ask a question. These three quantities, 1C, 2C, and 3C, also have a name, or have names. They are called principal with an AL. They are called principal invariants of C. Yes?
So does A equal B? Or
No. CAA is C11 plus C22 plus C33. CBB is C11 plus C22 plus C33. And this one is the sum of the 9 terms. A is a repeated index. There is no free index. So these are not equations, these are like quantities. So 1, 2, and 3, these are called principal invariants of C. Principal invariants of C. That's why we put C as a subscript. You can change C to any other matrix you like. Then they will be called, if you change C to A, like C to L or C to other matrix, then you will say these are principal invariants of that matrix. Now why do we call, so principal, I guess you understand, like is something big or small. Invariants. What does invariant mean in English? Doesn't change. So their values do not change if you rotate the coordinate system. Rotate. I did not say do any other transformation. If you rotate the coordinate system, then, and also go from right-handed to right-handed or left-handed to left-handed, then the values of 1C, 2C, and 3C do not change. Values of the entries in a matrix, like C11, C12, C13, they depend upon the coordinate system you are using. If you change the coordinate system, then you will get different components. However, the sum C11 plus C22 plus C33 will stay the same. Determinant of C will stay the same. And the second invariant we wrote, that will stay the same. So that's why these are called principal invariants. Okay, now, what if we want to find the directions in the present configuration along which stretches are maximum or minimum? We want to find the directions in the present configuration along which stretches are maximum or minimum. Yes?
Can we, once we find the eigenvectors in the reference configuration, transform them using C and get a...
Not transform them using C, transform them using F. Okay, so you can find their deformed positions by using F. However, if you do the exercise, and here I'm giving you the end result, all you do is replace C by B. So C is left Cauchy-Green tensor, B is right Cauchy-Green tensor. So you can think of them as brothers and sisters. C is left Cauchy-Green tensor, C is right Cauchy-Green tensor and B is left Cauchy-Green tensor. C gives you values in the reference configuration. B gives you values in the present configuration. So if you take eigenvalues of B are the same as the eigenvalues of C. No change. Eigenvalues of B and C are same. Their eigenvectors are not same. We went through that, I think, last time. Eigenvectors of B as in boy, eigenvectors of B matrix will give you directions in the present configuration along which stretches are maximum or minimum. Okay, now, any question about the principal stretches part? Yes?
I'm wondering, are the eigenvectors of C and B related through R somehow?
Not somehow. They are exactly related through R. Not somehow. Somehow means it's possible, right? If n is an eigenvector of B, it is related to the eigenvector of C through this matrix R, which R is the matrix that appears in the polar decomposition of F. And I think we showed that last time. Okay. Okay, now, so far we have been talking about how the line element changes. Now we want to see how this area element will change. So I have this vector PQ and I have another vector PR. This R is different. Let me change this. This R is not R rotation. Okay, this is a point R. So let me redraw this sketch. Let's call it L and call this M. So we have two vectors PL and PM passing through point P. The reason I didn't want to use R is because I have R there. You might think it's the same R. It's not the same. It was not the same R. Okay, now, so I want to find this area. I want to find the area spanned by vectors P, L and PM. What do I do? We have two vectors PL and PM passing through point P, and I want to find the area of this parallelogram. Yes?
You want to take the cross product?
You take the cross product. Very good. So you take the cross product. So dA, we are in the undeformed state. So dA, which is a vector, will equal PL cross PM. Now I want to use indices. Okay, I want to use indices, and since we are in the reference configuration, we use uppercase letters to indicate indices. So dA is, say, skewth component. Will be, I want to write, say dA is a vector. It has, if you take the cross product, you get a vector. Vector has three components. So that's what Q means. Q can be 1, 2, and 3. So the person in the hockey shirt, and, yeah, you. So what is this equal to? The one orange shirt, like, I think you know, right? Because both of you have hockey shirts, so. So what is this equal to? It's the cross product between vectors PL and PM. Okay, I think
what I do is I draw it out and then I do the IJK.
let's do with IJK. So tell, oh, you mean you are going to write the determine IJK, DL1, DL? No, that will take.
That's how I take the cross product.
Yeah, but I think, no, that's the right way to do it. I'm not saying that's wrong. That's fine. So I think we learned how to use index notation.
Permutation symbol.
Permutation symbol. Good. So we need that permutation symbol. So that's like Q, R, S. Q and R and S go from 1, 2, and 3. So PL, R. Incidentally, when I ask you questions, it's really to wake you up. It's not to embarrass anybody. It's just to wake you up, because when I see somebody is daydreaming, so I basically ask that person. So it's my perception that you are daydreaming. So that's why I ask you to wake you up. There is no point in like, I do not know beforehand whether you know the answer or not. Except in his case, I know that he knows the answer. So.
You're gonna be beat up then.
Who will beat you up?
I know. They're gonna get beat up.
No. Well, you are a big boy. You can defend yourself. Okay. Now, let's deform the body. So the body is deformed, and we are now in the present configuration. So point P went to P prime, M goes to M prime, and L goes to, say, L prime. Our goal is to find a relationship between the areas in the undeformed and deformed state. So this is L prime. Our goal is to find the relationship between areas in the deformed and non-deformed state. Is the goal clear? So we need to write area in the deformed state now. And you already have the answer on the sheet. All we need to do is use different notation now. It's still a permutation symbol, but now we have P prime, L prime, J, P prime, M prime, K. Remember, a vector has both magnitude as well as direction. So for I equal to 1, 2, and 3, you will get 3 components of the area vector. So we have I, J, K. Since we want to get a relationship between area vector in the deformed state and area vector in the undeformed state, so we write these now in terms of undeformed vectors. So that's Fj, say Q, PLQ, and this is FK or PMR. Josh, is it okay?
Just use Q twice.
I did,
Well, earlier.
but that was a different equation.
Yeah.
See, otherwise I will be out of symbols. No, that was a different equation. That's allowed. Okay, now I think we will see if you remember results from the homework problem, second homework set. either second or third. Jessica's getting worried. I won't ask you, don't worry. Okay, so let's write this as now epsilon. I'm going to change I to something else, L, JK, and write it as delta IL. This L and L summed means that still I have I. All I'm doing is multiplying by unit matrix. The rest everything is copied. The rest copy everything. So I'm going to save time and not copy it. Whatever I underlined, just copy that. This is identity matrix, like our unit matrix. I'm going to write it as F inverse F. Okay, I mean that's no problem, because identity matrix, if the matrix is invertible, then A inverse A is 1 or A inverse is 1. So this is then epsilon I j k F inverse. So we have Q R, so let's put S I F I, oh, can't you say I again? So let me put L here. F. The rest is copied. So this term is also copied here. So this delta IL, I'm writing it as F inverse. This delta IL, I'm writing it as FIS F inverse SL. F is invertible. Determinant of F is assumed to be positive. So this step is permissible. It's mathematically allowed. Of course, I have a purpose in doing all this. Otherwise, I won't be wasting your time. Now let me copy that stuff. So I have F inverse SL. I think I goofed. Let me change. This is I, and that's L. Still, you get this. Instead of delta IL, you get delta Li. So it's not a. Still, it's a F inverse. The only thing is instead of writing delta IL, I'm writing delta Li. So it's epsilon L J K F L S. Now I copied that stuff. So I have F J Q F K R. I have F inverse S I. Then I have P L Q P M R. So I think we copied every term. Yes.
Is that lowercase?
Please press that button. Yeah, please press that button.
Is that lowercase s different from that uppercase s?
Oh, no, you are right. I copied it wrong. No. It was uppercase S. Sorry. Thank you. No, I copied it wrong. You were right. No, it's copied it wrong. Now, whom should I wake up? Okay. I think this answer is not on the sheet yet. So, and I guess it's probably too much to expect that you remember the homework, because you did some time ago. So you probably did recently.
Yeah.
So what is this equal to?
It's equal to determinant of F.
Very good. So it's determinant of F, which is Jacobian, J.
Epsilon S Q R.
Very good. So it's epsilon SQR. So it's determinant of F, which is Jacobian. You did this homework exercise, okay? This is not something where I think you had to, these were like 27 basically problems. And then you said if I equal to J, then two rows are same, therefore 0 equal to 0 and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now PL cube PMR F inverse S5. And this answer is on the sheet. So yeah, after this line I will quit. So what is this quantity equal to? The answer is on the sheet. Ganesh? So this is DAS F inverse S. So Q is summed, R is summed, free index is S. So it's S component of DA, and I will pick it up from here next time. So whatever homework you have done, those results will be used in subsequent work. Most of those results, not every result. Okay. Oh, you can pick up your homework. But I need to see Tizard, Tizard, and just Klein Justin.
Yesterday, I really apologize for meeting some patient at the end of class. I was meeting someone who didn't.
That's okay. No, I didn't even notice it.
Okay. I was normally
No, I did not notice it that you left. Did you leave?
No, I didn't leave, but I was making it clear that.
No, no. It's okay. No, it's fine.
Should I bring the first one to the